The first warning wasn't a missile launch or a shouting voice. It was a single line of numbers that stopped agreeing with itself. On the cockpit display of the B-2 Spirit, Missouri, two navigation solutions, both technically valid, began to separate by fractions more than the mission profile allowed. Not enough to trip the master caution. Not enough to abort and write a headline. Enough to remind the aircraft commander that stealth isn't invisibility. It's the discipline to stay boring until the moment you aren't. The bomber had been airborne for 11 hours already, launched from Whiteman AFB in Missouri on a profile that looped south over the Atlantic, refueled twice by KC-135s in the dark, then slipped east across the Mediterranean, without a single act of emission. No radar sweep, no IFF ping, just inertial drift corrected by encrypted satellite bursts every 90 minutes. Stealth is patience wearing fuel as armor. You don't win by disappearing. You win by making sure the other side never knows when you stop disappearing. Below lay a fictionalized slice of central Iran, rugged Zagros ridges, dry valleys, hardened tunnel mouths disguised as sheep trails or industrial vents. The targets weren't factories or missile silos this time. They were people, a tightly scheduled emergency conclave in the deepest command node under the mountains near Qom. Supreme Leader Khamenei, IRGC Commander General Pakbor, Armed Forces Chief of Staff, key nuclear oversight figures, and several deputies. Intelligence had converged on this single hardened site, buried under granite and reinforced concrete layers equivalent to 2 football fields deep, because recent escalations had forced them to meet in person rather than risk fragmented video links. The node wasn't on any tourist map or commercial satellite baseline. It was fed by redundant power, filtered air, blast doors rated for near-miss tactical nukes. But redundancy has limits when the weapon coming is 30,000 pounds of hardened steel and high explosive designed to punch through 200 feet before detonating. The crew, pilot and mission commander, spoke in clipped shorthand. INS drift at 0.7 arc min. Satlock holding SNR marginal. Passive picture stable. No fresh emitters in the threat basket. Radio silence wasn't policy. It was physiology. Every transmission is a fingerprint. Enough fingerprints become a hand reaching out to kill you. Outside, the night was moonless, high-altitude overcast smearing the stars into gray static. The terrain below refused clean radar returns, jagged rock faces, thermal clutter from cooling vents, occasional nomadic campfires that could mask a surface-to-air battery. The B-2 flew through a world engineered to lie. Navigation anchors, inertial platform, and periodic SAT updates. INS is brutally honest. It keeps counting even when jammed, but error accumulates like rust. Satellite corrections shave it back, unless the link is spoofed, degraded, or simply geometry pour over mountainous latitude. That was the first quiet tension, the numbers drifting. INS said one vector. SAT overlay said another. Difference: 380 meters at 1,200 kilometers slant range. Growing. In the rear cockpit, the mission commander ran passive checks without flourish. The other monitored the electronic order battle, not hunting active radars, but listening for the way silence changes when radars hold their breath. Modern defenses don't always light up to be dangerous. Sometimes they just listen better. Aerial refueling had happened 4 hours earlier. Clinical, blacked out, necessary. The tanker is always the brightest thing in the sky, even when it tries not to be. Everyone hates that moment. Everyone needs it. Now, in ingress phase, the B-2's job wasn't a fight. It was to arrive on time in airspace where being on time means everything. The mountains offered no cover. No river valleys to mask altitude. Just vertical stone and the certainty that Iranian air defense nodes only needed one clean geometry snapshot to shift from suspicion to lock. Then the threat display did something worse than scream. It blinked, a narrow, coherent spike, there for 1.1 seconds, gone, as if a low probability of intercept radar on the ground had flicked on just long enough to ask, something there? The crew didn't flinch, didn't speak, didn't react like a movie. They tightened, because the deadliest thing isn't detection. It's near detection, and convincing yourself it didn't count. The navigation drift ticked to 520 meters. The electronic environment felt fractionally more alert. The clock moved forward. Second warning arrived as distortion in the quiet. A signal that shouldn't exist, yet did. On the synthetic aperture radar snapshot, used only in microbursts, the high-resolution ground map showed a ghost return brief, clean glinted bearing 112, range 840 kilometers, altitude differential suggesting surface emitter. Vanished in 0.9 seconds. Likely thermal bloom from vent stack, the pilot murmured, more habit than conviction. The mission commander said nothing. He had seen these ghosts before, in exercises in real profiles, and ghosts rarely stayed ghosts. The B-2 shifted to ultra-low observable protocols. Engines trimmed to minimum infrared signature. Altitude stepped down to hug terrain, masking, without triggering terrain-following radar. No active sensors. No data link pings. Just inertial coast and preloaded digital terrain data. The aircraft wasn't invincible. It was improbable. Payload in the bays, 2 GBU, 57 AB massive ordnance penetrators. Each 30,000 pounds, 20 feet long, GPS/INS guided, hardened casing designed to tunnel through granite before the 5,000-pound warhead chain detonated. The MOP wasn't just a bomb. It was physics weaponized. Kinetic energy from 40,000-foot drop turning steel into a hypersonic drill. Crew spoke less now. Drift stabilized at 0.9 kilometers cumulative. Passive L and clean, no new fan out. Time on target plus 4 minutes. Silence was a mood. It was doctrine with consequences. Outside, high desert cold bit through composite skin. Zagreus ridges clawed upward, forcing the bomber into gentle S-turns to maintain line-of-sight masking. Horizon dissolved into thermal haze. No clean references. No city glow to blend with. World refused measurement. Navigation tension mounted. Cumulative error, now 1.4 kilometers. Still inside circular error probable for MOP release, but shrinking margin. In rear cockpit, mission commander initiated final target package validation. Coordinates triple-checked against last satellite burst. Command node entrance shaft, ventilation complex, power tunnel redundancy point. Intelligence brief had been clinical. Decapitation window narrow. Simultaneous impact required. No second pass viable. Earlier tanker tow had been textbook. Blacked out rendezvous. Drogues extended. Fuel transferred without chatter. Most vulnerable window. Everyone hated it. Everyone survived it. Now deep ingress. Mission reducer arriving undetected over precise latitude-longitude slice at a precise second. Mountains gave no mercy. No canyons to hide radar cross-section. Only knowledge that Iranian long-range SAM batteries, S-300 PMU, 2 equivalents, domestic clones, needed only one uncontaminated geometry to transition from search to track. Threat indicator flickered again, sustained this time. Low power, narrow band interrogation pulse. Not acquisition. Probing. Crew response. Altitude increase 800 feet. Slight heading correction 3 degrees. Airspeed hold. Discipline, not panic. Most lethal moment. Almost acquired. And deciding it didn't matter. Cumulative drift. 1.8 kilometers. Electronic breath quickened. Clock advanced relentlessly. Far below, in reinforced conference chamber, the gathered leadership reviewed latest damage assessments from prior exchanges. Guards outside tunnel scanned sky with passive optics. Air defense nodes listened. In Missouri, mission planners watched telemetry ghost. In Washington, authorization chain remained open. B-2 closed final 180 nautical miles in radio silence. Third warning was no longer warning. It was geometry locking into place. At release altitude, precisely 38,000 feet, the B-2's bays opened for 1.8 seconds. 2 mops fell free. Doors closed before any meaningful radar return could form. Bombs glided initially, then tipped earthward, GPS/INS tightening trajectory to within meters. Below, Iranian early warning net caught nothing coherent. A faint, transient anomaly, dismissed as meteor scatter or atmospheric ducting, vanished. Mops accelerated under gravity, reaching near supersonic impact velocity. First struck entrance portal complex. 30,000-pound steel casing punched through outer concrete cap, burrowed 140 feet into layered rock before detonation sequence triggered. Shockwave propagated inward, collapsing primary blast doors, severing power trunks, fracturing ventilation shafts. Second MOP impacted 1.4 seconds later, offset 80 meters, ventilation and emergency egress cluster. It drilled deeper, estimated 190 feet, before warhead exploded in sequence designed to maximize spall and overpressure inside confined spaces. Underground, the conclave chamber became a pressure cooker. Reinforced concrete flexed, then failed. Air turned to firestorm. Lights died. Communications severed. Those not killed by initial blast waves succumbed to collapsing structure, suffocation, or secondary fires. No dramatic radio calls. No final speeches. Just abrupt silence on every command net. Above, the B-2 already turning west. Post-release egress profile. Maximum acceleration of 520 knots. Descent into terrain shadow. Course reversal toward extraction airspace. Cockpit voice. Weapons away. Validated impact telemetry. No acquisition spike during release. Exfil commenced. Threat display stayed quiet. Iranian defenses, layered as they were, had never transitioned to active track. Stealth had done its job, not by being perfect, but by being improbable enough. On ground, secondary explosions rippled. Fuel stores, backup generators, ammunition caches for site security. Surface shook for kilometers. Satellite imagery later would show subsidence craters, smoke plumes rising vertically in still air. In Washington, confirmation arrived via encrypted burst. Seismic sensors, overhead infrared bloom, interrupted command signals. Objective achieved. Leadership decapitation confirmed. B-2 crew felt no elation, only checklist fatigue. 11 hours home, 2 more refuelings, debrief waiting. Iranian response nets lit up, fragmented, chaotic. Mid-level commanders activated pre-delegated orders. Missiles remained on alert, but the apex decision loop was gone. Most dangerous part wasn't the strike. It was what came after the silence. Fourth warning was aftermath. The quiet that follows when a system loses its head. By dawn local time, smoke still rose from the Calm Mountain complex. Rescue teams reached outer tunnels. Inner chambers remained inaccessible, collapsed, superheated, toxic. Official Iranian statements delayed 6 hours, then emerged careful. Technical incident at secure facility, martyrs among defenders, no names released yet. In reality, confirmation filtered through intelligence channels within 90 minutes. Supreme Leader, IRGC Commander, Armed Forces Chief, Nuclear Oversight Principles, all lost in single synchronized event. Succession protocols, 4 deep deputies per key position. Kicked in automatically. Mid-level IRGC officers assumed temporary command nodes. Ballistic forces stayed on hair trigger, but without unified release authority. The B-2 landed back at Whiteman after 34-hour mission window. Crew debrief lasted longer than flight. No champagne, just classified logs, fatigue, and knowledge that strategic balance had shifted, not ended. Washington assessed. Command paralysis estimated 72 to 120 hours minimum. Iranian retaliation probable but uncoordinated. Likely distributed missile salvos, proxy activation, cyber spikes. No decapitation. Symmetry existed on their side. World reacted in waves. Oil spiked 18%. Gulf states went a highest alert. UN Security Council emergency session called. Social media filled with satellite before/after, unverified casualty lists, speculation. In Tehran streets, confusion reigned. State media spoke of aggression, but without clear voice from summit, message fragmented. Protests flickered, some mourning, some questioning. B-2 crew debriefed, went quiet quarters. Pilot stared at ceiling. Numbers lined up. Mission commander nodded, and then they didn't. Parchment mountains began covering scars with dust. Clock reset, but ticking differently now.